Sashi Fuki Jushin Mito Tran Rira Minchi Yende Yampadi Sange Shindu Ikte Uargi Droku Namda Shingla Druparsho Yam Guru Ratnamandala Sayami Sange Chiram Soki Choknam La Jangju Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Daki Jinye Gipe Sunamki Drola Benchir Sange Drupasho Sange Chunam Soki Choknam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Ketsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sunamki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho Sange Chiram Soki Choknam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Kyasuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sunamki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho.
Please get comfortable. We're going to start with about a 20-minute meditation. Let's start by relaxing and begin to let your awareness descend from the head to the ground, beginning to set your body at ease and allowing your body to fully breathe. Gently from your nose, in and out. Let your respiratory system be in its most natural state. Begin to relax your body, relax your shoulders, relax all the tension that's in your neck. Release any tension in your jaw, the corners of your mouth, the space in between your brows. See if you can fully relax your hips. And begin to settle your mind by releasing all your concerns, any anxieties or stresses that you might have. Releasing and letting go. We'll begin the meditation with the first question. What would it feel like to be truly happy right now in your life? Can you feel what that happiness would be if you had all the things that you wanted and needed? As the ideas come to your mind, begin to use your breath so that in every out-breath, you begin to arouse the aspiration, wishing this feeling out into the world. May I find such well-being. May I be truly happy. Breathing life into this vision. And then begin to move into the realm of possibility, using each out-breath to imagine right now, if that were to be true, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would it actually be? In order to realize the happiness that we seek, most of us understand that it's impossible to do it alone. Our lives are too intertwined. So with this awareness, in order to realize the happiness that you desire, the next question is, what would you love to receive from the world around you? What do you need from the world in order to achieve the happiness that you so desire? can you begin to think about and feel what that would be? What support do you want? In the spirit of being loving to yourself, with each in-breath, begin to arouse the feeling of this aspiration. And then visualize and embody, drawing from the powers of your imagination. Imagine you're receiving all that you truly need right now. Imagine what that would look like and feel like to you. Receiving, accepting, being offered all the things that you need. In order to receive such happiness and well-being, we also realize that help from the outside may not only be enough, that there is some inner transformation that is required, some sort of blockage that is from within that must be dispelled. So the next question is, how would you love to transform, to evolve as a human being? How would you love to change? What would that feel like? What would you like to transform, to realize the happiness that you seek? Begin to imagine what this evolution can be and the inner causes that can lead you to the causes you desire. And with your out breath, use it to arouse the aspiration. Fuel your out breath with every exhalation. to bring about the inner transformation that you seek to change. Then imagine that the transformation is taking place right now, that you're becoming the person you'd love to become. That you are the person that you desire to be. We know that none of us live in isolation and that our lives are intertwined with the fabric of reality. So with this awareness, let's raise the fourth and final question. In order to imbue our own lives with the greatest possible meaningfulness, the greatest satisfaction, the greatest sense of purpose, what would you like to offer the world, drawing on your own unique backgrounds, your skills, your gifts, your interests, your passions? What would you love to offer the world around you in order to make your life as meaningful as possible? With every exhalation, arouse the feeling, may offer my best. And then imagine here and now offering your best of your skills, your knowledge, whatever you would like to give. And imagine it being received by the world. Imagine enriching the world with what you can offer with every out-breath. then release all the imaginings. Let everything go. And let your awareness rest right here where it is, in stillness and simplicity, knowing itself. Okay, we're going to be talking about giving tonight, and how to give. Well, yes, how to give with wisdom and how to give in order to amplify your karma. Can we say Jimpa? So Jimpa is going to be the 4 different kinds of giving. It's in the so we're back in the Abhidharma system for those of you who have been in and out of class. And sometimes you'll hear it in terms of the word generosity. So it's giving or generosity. The way that we're going to frame it up here is really going to be under giving, because it's more than just being generous. It's more than just giving a lot or a lot of. So that's how we're going to speak about it. So there are 4 different ways of giving. The first one, can we say Daki Dunchir? Daki Dunchir. For those of you that are new to class, this is Tibetan. We do it as part of the Galupa lineage. Some people love it. A lot of people don't. I'm not a Tibetan scholar by no means, but it's my responsibility to at least present the information to you. So the first one, Dak, means me. Gi is of. Dun is for, and Jir is benefit. Speaking of benefit, the benefit in my mind of having the Tibetan, for those of you that are new to class, is at least you know that the content you're getting is not like some weird, woo-woo stuff. It's actually coming from scripture. So at least it gives it some foundation. The first one here is giving for your own benefit. And what we're talking about specifically, because there are so many different kinds of giving, this specific one is really, it's offerings that you would give to, mostly it means to like objects, inanimate objects, to temples, offerings that you'll give. Sometimes you'll see in spiritual temples, there's like people will come and give offerings. And the fact is that when you're giving an offering to the Buddha, right, or to deities, the Buddha doesn't need your offering. So technically you're actually giving to yourself, okay? In a way, right? You're giving in a sense for you to benefit from that offering. Does that make sense? Okay.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's just a certain kind of way of giving. There's no good or bad. It's just understanding that that's a certain kind of giving, that you're understanding that when you give, that it is in a way karmically tied to you practicing the sense of giving, but understanding that the deity is not benefiting from it. Or for those of you that do retreat, there are certain rituals that you'll have where you'll give to certain deities and make offerings and plates and foods and cakes and whatnot, and go out grocery shopping before you go to retreat to buy all these certain things. The deities don't need your cakes.
So I want to just understand this though.
Sure.
So
well, let me finish the different kinds and then see if that answers your question. So they say that there's 2 kind of types of people that do this kind of giving. Okay. There's one type that has no realizations. You're just kind of giving because you aren't free from the desires of the world in which we live in. So the world that we live in, there are different kind of realms that we live in. We consider this being the desire realm, the one in which we live in. Mainly the things that motivate us are what two things, according to the First Dalai Lama? Food and sex, right? Those are kind of the two kind of primal things that we're motivated by in the desire realm as humans. So there's one type where there's a type of person that will give with really no realization of wanting to get out of the desire realm. The idea of the path of enlightenment, or the path to nirvana, whichever path you decide to choose, which I feel like I do need to explain. So there are kind of two-ish paths. There's the path of enlightenment and nirvana. Can someone tell me the difference of nirvana versus enlightenment? Kind of Cliff Notes version.
Nirvana is the cessation of mental afflictions.
Okay. What's a mental affliction?
Anything you think about, because it's really causing you suffering.
Yeah, the things that cause you suffering, the things that afflict you, right? And so enlightenment is the cessation of mental afflictions. Is that what you said? Nirvana is. That's correct.
It's just that.
It's just that.
You're existing in a blissful state.
Mm-hmm. And then what's enlightenment?
It's when you can split your body into countless number of like bodies and have countless number of beings directly at every single moment.
That is also true. Yes. There's an omniscience there, right? What are the different kind of triggers that would get someone, have a being go into nirvana versus enlightenment? What kind of motivation needs to be in play?
The desire to help all beings.
For which one?
The Buddha, for the second one.
For the enlightenment.
Yeah.
So there is this concept that in order to reach enlightenment, that there is this motivation when you have a spiritual practice that you're saying, I'm motivated to not just help myself reach being free of suffering and being out of this realm, but in fact, my desire is in fact to help me and all beings. Okay. And so that aspect, when you hear that, is called bodhicitta. Sometimes you'll hear it, or you'll hear it in the terms of a bodhisattva. One who is a bodhisattva, or there are vows that you can actually even take of, you can take bodhisattva vows so that you have the aspiration to be a bodhisattva. Okay. So going back to the two types of people, there is the one kind of person who has no realization. They're saying, I'm just going to offer. I don't even really care that I'm freeing myself. Like, I just want more money. Like, I'm making offerings. And some of us, like when you go to Asia, I've been to plenty of temples where my grandmother being one, we're like, we need to go to temple today. I'm like, where are we going to temple? She's like, we got to make money. And I'm like, we're making money at the temple? What do you mean? She goes, you just come along. And that's what it was. And you'd make offerings. And you would they would sell, the temples that we would go to would be these clay roof tiles that they have that you put your name on it and you get to sponsor a tile and you get like time with the Lama and whatnot. But anyway, that was one way in which you give. Another kind is giving realizations for someone who is on the worldly path. So I think it was like 2 or 3 classes ago, we talked about kind of two different paths. Does anyone remember, there were two kind of, there was one that was a worldly path and there was one that was a path beyond the world.
One trying to get everything that they want.
There was a path so basically there's 2 ways to remove desire, and there are 2 paths to do it. And the one path was having really, really subtle meditation states that actually does can mentally be out of this desire realm, and it's subtle, but it's not permanent. And the other one was to have the direct perception of selflessness. Remember that? It was kind of like it was a list-heavy class. Okay, so there are these 2 paths. There's one path, there's 2 paths to get out of desire. There's one path that is, what the ultimate path would be is to have the direct perception of selflessness. Okay, it means that, or the direct perception of emptiness. It's understanding that, I can't get into an emptiness class tonight. It's understanding that the world comes from you and that everything that you experience in the world is something that you project onto. And if you project onto things in the world, it means that everything that you see in the world is not self-existent. That nothing is self-existent from its own side. That you are projecting onto me like I'm a blank canvas or a projector, right? A blank, what do we say? Blank screen. A blank screen. You project onto me your perception of who you think I am or who I am to you. And that's based on your karma. But I don't self-existently come at you as being who I am or who I think I am. Does that make sense? Okay. Is that just questions? We're all good with that? Okay. So the other path, that's amazing that you guys may get that for people that are new. That took me many years to understand that. I'm like, what? Okay. And then I'm like, so that jackass is not coming at me? What do you mean? He's a total jackass. So what that means is that out of the two types of people, there's one person that says, I have no realizations. I'm just giving because I want desire more in this realm. There's another person that's saying that that's giving, and they're on the path of what we're calling the worldly path, which is the path not of having that direct perception of emptiness or no self. They're the ones who are having subtle meditations. So they can actually have very, very deep, subtle meditations that it's almost, their mind is out of this realm. You can actually move out of this realm, your mind. But the fact is that when you come out of deep meditation and you come out of retreat, you usually go back into your regular, desire realm life. So it's not a permanent kind of path out. It's a temporary path out. So those are the two kinds of people. Okay.
Why did it not choose the permanent path?
It's, from my understanding, it's not that you didn't choose it, but it does have to do with, it has to do from the sense that I get, and from my understanding is that the choice, it's not so much of a deliberate choice in a way, it's more of a trap. Does that make sense? It's easy to get into deep, subtle meditations that it's very deep and you feel it and it feels so good and it's sexy. And you get more and more and more subtle. And you are actually having realizations and you think that is just where you want it to stay there. You don't want to break through that glass ceiling. For some reason, for whatever reason, based on that person's karma, right? They're just not pushing it through. So they stay in that sweet, juicy spot because it feels good, but they actually haven't pushed it to have other realizations. It happens, I think, more often than we realize. Now that I'm saying it out loud like that. Yes?
So there's two types of giving for your own benefit.
Mm-hmm. Two types of people.
Two types of people who give for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
One type of person gives for their own benefit to please let this result in me getting more of what I want.
Yeah. In this desire realm.
Yeah.
World. Yeah.
Of the things that I know, please
right.
let this give me the things that I know I like.
Mm-hmm.
The other type is giving with the aspiration of please let me get beyond this whole things I like, things I don't like thing.
The other one is someone who is giving still self-existently because they haven't had those realizations and is having it's a deep meditator basically that gives, but still has not had the direct perception of emptiness.
This is type 1 or type 2?
Type 2.
Type
1 is someone who has had no realizations.
Wait, I'm so...
Type 1 you're onto just goes to...
I'm sorry, what?
Is type 1 you're onto goes to make money? Or is that another type?
Okay, let's go back. The first type is someone who simply is in the desire realm. They have no realizations. They're giving for the sake of wanting to get more back conventionally.
Okay.
The second person is someone who's a deep meditator. Ultimately, that's what it is, right? Who's a deep meditator who is on the worldly path, who has subtle meditations, but they have not had the direct perception of selflessness.
Thank you. With the aspiration to have that realization?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't. I would suspect that if they're giving offerings, that there is something, they're still giving with some sort of sense of self-existence.
So
Right.
neither type of person has had the direct perception.
No, that's why they're giving those
Okay,
offerings.
okay.
That's why you're making those offerings in that way.
So,
That's what they're saying. Yes.
so I'm just confused about the philosophical underpinning of why anyone is giving to this temple, right?
Well, I think that's karma. Like you can, like it's like there's. Let's go through because there's so many different kinds of giving, and then there's different things that you can give to and people you can give to.
Just quickly, then I'll shut up. But like, if it was like you were worshiping some god or something, who you thought had the power to give stuff to you.
Mm-hmm.
But as I understand it, that's not like, as you said in the beginning, Buddha doesn't care whether you give him stuff or not. So I don't understand why the first person or the second person
would give anyway.
Uh-huh. Like what's the whole point? What's their rationale?
Right.
I mean, maybe it's a misguided rationale. Maybe they think, oh, the Buddha will give me something. But certainly the meditator's not thinking that. So what's the philosophical reason why?
There are karmas of giving. Like when there are, Buddhist traditions have so much of, there's tradition, there's ritual of giving. And there is also giving, and so there is karma in giving, and actually with the heart and the aspiration to give, and if there's an intention to give, there is actually great karma in that.
Okay.
So you can still do it without being like, Buddha, give me $1. Like the way my grandmother did it was probably not the way to do it, for sure. But because like she would go for like, make sure my daughter gets married, like that kind of stuff. I'm like, what? This is so weird. So there's that. That's not the way it works. It's like
in a very kitchen way, sort of belief in karma, right? She's like, I give Buddha $1.
Yes, there is a bit of a transaction in her mind, right? If I come and spend my time and sit here and do my mantras and put offerings in and and put in fruit and dollars and rice and help. To her, there is a transaction that's happening there karmically for her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. They're just saying that there are different ways in which you can give. And actually, I would say a subtle meditator, there are a lot of meditators in this world that actually haven't had realizations, but still do a lot of ritual giving, for sure. India, like everywhere you go. They may not have the certain kind of knowledge, but that is very much part of their culture of giving. And that's part of their practice. You give and that in hopes of enlightenment. Yeah.
Okay.
Seva is a part of that too. Sometimes when you see it,
So maybe you could say you do those gifts because you are hoping to plant seeds that will be.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Second one. Can we say Shendun Cheer? So Shen is other, Dun is for, and Cheer is benefit. So this is for is it popping up? Giving for the benefit of others. So this is, Aryas do this. What are Aryas? Who are Aryas? Mm-hmm. Someone who has had the direct perception of emptiness or the direct perception of no self. So the idea here is that whoever's giving, there is no benefit that they're looking for to get back. They're simply giving to help the other people. They have no desire of wanting it back for themselves. That is really not the point or the intention, especially in the desire realm. That's not part of their motivation at all. And so there are some Aryas who do give and can give. You can have the direct perception of emptiness and give with no desire of wanting something back in the desire realm. That being said, I will also note that you can be an Arya and still have desire. Okay? Just because you have the direct perception of emptiness doesn't mean you come out of it and you're like, oh, I just don't want things anymore. Yes.
You specified many times that they don't want something back in the desire realm.
Yes.
Does that mean that you could want back spiritual evolution?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that it would be fair to say that there's probably something like that at play. Yeah. But it was specific with this one about the desire realm, and being specific that if you have a realization of emptiness, that it doesn't necessarily remove you from the desire of what you see conventionally around you. Yeah. Because when you have the direct perception of emptiness, what are the two things that are removed? Does anyone remember? There are two specific things that you get knocked out. Doubt is one. Yeah. There's no doubt about the practice and the philosophies. And what's the second one?
Extreme spiritual practices are not taking to enlightenment.
No.
You know the exact date. You know the exact date of something.
Well, you do see your future lives. And you do know how many lives it will take until you get enlightened. And you do also have the experience of seeing the Buddha. But the second one is actually just the intellectual understanding of self-existence, is what they say.
Self-existent?
Mm-hmm. Of things being self-existent, of things being not self-existent. Yeah. Just kidding. Everything is self-existent. No, it's not.
You still see it as self-existent.
You still see it self-existent, but so you
know
understand
that it's not.
it. You know it's
You
not,
don't just think
but
it's
you
not,
still see
know
it.
now.
You still have the karma to see it. Yeah. So you have the direct perception of emptiness. You come out of it. You have seen and you understand, you experience that things are not self-existent. But when you come out of it, you still have the karma to see things self-existently. And you don't have the desire necessarily removed. Yes.
So, as opposed to Arhat that has
Yes.
realized the Four Noble Truths and is
Exactly. The moment you have that desire, seeing things self-existent removed, you've become an arhat.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Does Arya realize Four Noble Truths?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. That's correct. Number 3. It's going to be a long night. Can we say Niker? Dunchir. So Niker is both, Dun is for, and Cheer is benefit. And this is a benefit both for self and others by giving. So this is the giver wants results in the desire realm, and the one who is receiving, the recipient, also is receiving something in the desire realm. There's both. So we're always staying in the desire realm here, right? The giver and the receiver are both giving and receiving in the desire realm. Okay.
So, like, the receiver couldn't be a Buddha in this case because the receiver has to be a desire.
Yeah. That's right. That's why the opportunity to give to a Buddha is also, amazing. It's your karma is, which we'll talk about.
So that's just conventional giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. For the most part, for most of us, yeah. And number 4, can we say Nikkei? Min cheer. So Nikkei is both. Min is no, and cheer is benefit. This is neither benefit by giving. So this is actually for a Buddha giving to another Buddha. That neither really benefit from it. They don't. That's not the point of it. And there's this idea about giving to, not giving to receive or to give so much, but really giving to honor. So they're saying that in the realms of the Buddhas, they're constantly giving, but in a way to honor each other, which I think is that's a really beautiful way to do it. Because I think so much of us conventionally do give with the expectation of receiving rather than giving simply to honor, right? Or we give out of obligation, or we give because someone's told us that we're supposed to, or we say that we're supposed to, and there's something nice about simply the idea. I do also think that it's a very Western thing to not give out of honor. Like in Asia, that's such a common thing, but it's also very tainted because there's a lot of obligation mixed into that. So for most Asians, you have to work very hard to try to split those two and try to understand when you're giving and how you're giving. But there's something really beautiful and pure about this idea about giving to honor. Okay, moving on. There are 7 qualities of the giver that make the karmic result more powerful. So we're going to divide this into 3 different segments. We're going to be talking about the person who gives, which we just talked about, the person you give to, and the type of gift you give. Okay. The first, this is called, can we say pakbe?
Pakbe.
Nordun. So pakbe is Arya, Nor is riches, and Dun is 7 kinds. It's the 7 riches of the Aryas, is what it's called. The 7 qualities that we're going to talk about.
How come Dun and the other ones mean sport?
I don't know.
Homonyms.
Is it one of those
Life.
I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I don't know Tibetan. I just pretend like I do. And I don't even do a very good job.
So is Arya Sanskrit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what this is going to talk about is, as practitioners, all the times we think if you become to give has a lot to do with, or like when we think about how am I going to karma charge my giving, and we give to teachers and we give to other practitioners, and there's a lot of giving in the system of Tibetan Buddhism of lamas, or helping teachers or helping your Dharma or your Sangha members. This is going to talk more about what kind of change needs to happen within yourself to actually shift the power of your giving, rather than just giving to what you would consider higher holy beings. Okay. So the first one is called Depa, and that's faith. They're saying that there's a sense of educated faith that you have. And faith in Buddhism is, like, when you think about the word faith, how would you describe faith to you?
Like believing in something that you can't really conventionally prove.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
Stick to the goal without knowing how to do it yet.
Uh-huh. It's like blind faith. There's a lot of like blind faith in a way. That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah. Okay. So in Buddhism, the way that they talk about faith is actually recognizing a quality that you see in someone else, a teacher, a practitioner, that you would like to emulate. It's the idea of kind of having a sense of reverence or admiration, almost, is the way that they talk about faith. So what they're saying is that when you're giving, it's not just giving to people that you think are high teachers or teachers at all. It's actually having a sense within yourself of, when you see people that you're giving to look at the good qualities in which that they have that you would like to have yourself. So you have that, you hold that in your heart. You're giving out of a place of recognizing their good sides. I mean, everyone has both. I have a lot, but of everything. But Yeah.
Maybe in people's positive quality is
Mhm.
faith.
Mm-hmm. And here that's how they're talking about it, which is I think interesting. I would love to test to see for all of us in this room, when you give somebody something this week, anything like a cookie or a mint at work, hey, you want a mint? But when you give, can you even just consider giving and looking at and thinking about the quality in which you like about them that you wish you had? Oh my goodness, a lot of
This
Yeah.
increases the karma, the good karma of your gift.
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive.
Why?
Well, because it's like I'm giving this to you because you're deserving,
No.
versus
No.
I'm giving this to you because I altruistically want to do good for
No, it's, well, I think that's interesting. I find the second one to be almost a little assumptive. Like, what do you mean good for me?
you.
Like,
It is assumptive, but it comes from an altruistic place, whereas this seems to come from a, you said it,
If you-
admiration.
but if you think that admiration is a sense of, what was the word that you used right before?
Altruistic.
No, before that. Deserving? Yeah, if you think that admiration is coming from a place of like deserving and judgment, then that's an offline conversation that we can have. But what I'm saying is,
admiration implies judgment.
It-
Right? If I admire you, I've made a judgment about you.
I think that you have discretion, and I think that there's a fondness, and I think that you have discretion of aspects of qualities in which resonate with you, and some qualities that don't.
Any of those things, but if I'm giving you something because I have positive feelings towards you,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. All I'm saying is it seems to me it's a much better thing to give something to you purely altruistically, where I don't necessarily.
Well, that is
admire
also one way which we will talk about. I'm going to give you, this is a very dimensionalized way of looking at different aspects of giving that most of us conventionally don't think about, right? So the practice here is to just give you perspective of different ways and qualities that we don't normally think about when we give. Like, you give because you're like, oh, I got it, you don't. I'll give you some, right? Or you share because that's polite to do. Or you give because you're supposed to do it. Or you feel bad, or blah, 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 right? This is actually talking about what's happening in the space of your heart and your mind's eye. And they're just saying simply one aspect. Maybe it doesn't work for you. That's fine. If it doesn't, you just let it go and you say that doesn't work for me. But one aspect to consider is, are you giving? And when you do give, you have a sense of fondness. You have a sense of benevolence and almost a sense of admiration, and kind of like, I'm giving, without getting almost too into it, but it's the same thing when we bow to each other. And I said this to you guys all in the beginning of class. When we bow to each other, I'm not like, oh, that's not what you're bowing to, the highest version of each other. That's ultimately what this probably is, right? You are acknowledging that, like, oh yeah, and actually that might even propel you to give a mint to that guy or that girl at work that you actually don't like very much. Or you're not giving because you're like, man, you got bad breath, like you need a mint, right? Right, you're actually like reaching out and having a moment where it's like, oh, I'm going to offer this gum or this mint or whatever to this client of mine who I don't really like 90% of the time, but that 10%, and it's training me to actually look at the positive aspects of them.
It's like giving a high five.
Yeah.
That's like a simple way. It's like, hey, you did something great. Like, that's awesome. High five.
Yes. Okay. That works. Sure.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Works. I'm into it. Okay. I'm moving on. Unless it's urgent.
Yeah, just a very quick question.
Please.
This faith, is it the same faith quality that's the antidote to doubt when they talk about the antidote, the hindrances?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because the way that those two are expressed feels very different to me. Yeah. Because this expression of faith is the first time I've actually heard of it this way. Yeah. That would be my answer.
But there is that aspect of doubt that you chase away by seeing seeing someone that you think of as enlightened or close to enlightenment.
I was always confused about the faith in Buddhism.
Like,
and I've heard it mostly in
but I think you're great, so I wanna believe.
Yeah.
It is more of that belief base. It's not like this is more reverent.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree. That's how I take it as well. Yeah. I know faith is always a tainted word. Number 2, can we say sultram? Sultram is morality. It's avoiding really the 10 non-virtues. Speaking of, while we do that, I'm going to pass around. So we have giveaways tonight. We have Dharma tchotchkes. Because you can never have enough lists that you can carry, and now you can carry it in your wallet. Thomas, does everyone know who Thomas is? Okay, Thomas is our...
Me.
Thomas has made these fabulous cards that you can keep in your wallet of your 10 virtues and non-virtues, so you can beat yourself up when you're feeling crappy about how you behave, or rejoice when you're being fabulous. Okay? So these are the 10 non-virtues. So I'm going to pass. Actually, Thomas, I'm going to... Thank you. Yeah. Yes. You get one, and you get one. Everyone gets one. Okay.
Keeping your morality is a form of giving?
Yeah, it's actually it's how to amplify your karma.
I'm really tickled by this.
You just tickled Michael.
Something tickled him.
I didn't know you were
High five.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're saying that by keeping your morality is what will help you become a better giver. It will amplify your karma. It will make your giving more exceptional. Okay, that's number 2, which makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense. The purer you are, the purer your giving is, and the purer your karma is. Like, how can you be? It's like being wasted and saying I love you is different than being sober and saying I love you. Right? Is that a good example? That's good, right?
That's why I love this class.
Like, there is a real world. You're not going to hear that from some other teachers that I know. The Dalai Lama will not give you that example.
Morality refers to virtues and non-virtues.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it does make sense, I think, when you think about keeping your morality, right? Just like in terms of keeping you as pure as possible. And not pure in the sense of like sinful, not like that. It's not that way in Tibetan Buddhism. But there is a sense of the cleaner your actions are and your thoughts are, the cleaner your thoughts are, the cleaner your actions will be, and less tainted it will be and you'll be actually less afflicted across the board. And if you're not practicing the 10 virtues, keep the card and just check it. That being said, also I will say, please do not be hard on yourself if you're not keeping your virtues every day or every moment. That's ridiculous. The fact that you're even considering it is an awesome advancement. I think most people don't think about that. And I know that sometimes we use the virtues and we use a lot of aspects to like bash ourselves or each other about how we're performing. And I just want everybody to realize that this is a very long game. You start beating yourself up now and you're not going to last down the road. So just the fact that it's just aware in your mind where you're thinking about these different concepts is honestly such a huge accomplishment. Okay? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was just wondering, okay, so instead of beating yourself up, you just, well, it is said that you should just be glad that you're aware of it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's like, how do you want to...
Yeah, I mean, you start and you're just like, oh man, I should have been more patient. Why was I that way? What was it? You know, and you'll realize that over time, your time between when you've done something that I have found, at least for myself, from the time you start learning these practices and you start engaging in it, you'll start to realize that your awareness becomes just heightened over time. It just does. It seeps in it. And your time to even apologize starts to get shorter. Like sometimes there's things that you'll do and you won't even apologize because you're like, I was right. There's nothing I need to apologize about. They're freaking out. That's their problem. Like, what am I apologizing for? Right? And as you start to be in this practice more, it will just naturally, in my opinion, and gracefully become where you are just feeling like, I'm still right, but I feel bad that you're upset. Right? And then it will start to actually shift and you'll realize that what you brought to the table and why you were that way and how that caused it. And then you'll start to realize that whatever they were experiencing was actually your karma and that you created it. And then you're not even upset because you're like, I know exactly how you feel because I felt that way a couple weeks ago, or I know exactly how you feel because, you know, and so it just suddenly shifts into compassion and you watch them and you're just like, and it's weird. And I've had this situation happen recently too, where I have a colleague of mine where I watch her and she is such a piece of work and sometimes says things and does things that's just so, in my opinion, just unprofessional sometimes. And I think it's harsh and unnecessary. And I see her and I'm like, oh my God, it is literally the younger version of me. It creeps me out because I'm just seeing a physical manifestation of another version of me. That is being highly inappropriate, being just, like confrontational, in my face, and aggressive for no reason at all. And so I see that. And because I see that, I have other colleagues who are like, well, you should say something. I'm like, I don't, because I know where it's coming from and I see it. And I also know that because if this is indeed a certain aspect of me in which I see, I know well enough about myself that if I say something now, it's going to go nowhere, right? So even the way in which I approach this person is so different than it would have been a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It just, because if it was even 5 or 10 years ago, it would have just a massive fight and we would be not talking. And in fact, I think she's amazing and brilliant and has so much to offer. There's just this aspect of that I see that drives me crazy, right? So you just start to realize over time, it will start to shift. And that's when it becomes really integrated into your life rather than being like, did I do that? Oh, no, I didn't do that. That's like, it starts there. But don't beat yourself up if you're not doing all your virtues or not your virtues or your practice, or you've done a non-virtue. That's okay. The fact that you can even identify that is so much more than a majority of human beings in the world. Most people don't even know when they're misbehaving. There's no self-awareness at all. Okay. All right. Number 3, can we say Tonghua? Tonghua is generosity. It means really to be generous, to not be stingy, just to give. Don't give the leftovers, right? Like, that's not the same, right? Like, give the good piece of the cake to the people first and, take the sides, take the corners for yourself. That sort of thing, okay? It's being generous. Number 4, tupa, is learning. It really refers specifically to classroom hours, about just being steeped in the education and learning, and being aware and just having knowledge of the teachings. My takeaway from it, though, is not so much of learning as it is of listening. I think that to me is more interesting. Like that's how I just interpret it. That makes sense to me. Be open and willing to listen and just see what comes out of it. Yeah. Number 5 is Noksa Shepa. And Noksa is to be embarrassed, and Shepa is to know or lose face. So this one is, it really means that when you're by yourself, no one's around, no one can see you, and you have the opportunity to misbehave. You don't do it. Okay? Because you know, when you start to have that, when you start to know that there's this bad deed that, and you have a conscience about it, that's actually a good thing. Okay. Does that make sense?
How does this relate to giving?
It relates to giving because it's the qualities of you as a giver, that when you can cultivate this aspect, it actually enhances you as a giver. Which is actually,
So this is a more universal thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's stuff like, I don't know, throwing trash outside. I saw a man in the subway during the morning rush hour peeing. I could not even believe that. I was like, I mean, that was people around, but anyway, I just wanted to stop him, but I was worried he would turn around and pee on me. I was like, excuse me, this is great. Anyway, but it's doing things where you know that there may be no one watching and you still have the consciousness to not just do something that would actually contribute to a non-virtue. You know? And New York is so easy to do that. There are things that you can do where people, even though there's so many people around, but trash is one that I think about a lot, where people just throw trash outside their window, or it's crazy. It's so not okay. And they just, you think no one's watching and no one's looking. Stealing is another one, but I'm assuming most of you here are just like actively trying to find opportunities to steal. That sort of thing. Or like I had this moment where I have a neighbor who tends to like leave their recycling outside the actual recycling room, like in the hallway, and it drives me crazy. It makes me so angry. And I can tell when it's their name on the, like once it was the boxes and then you can see the name, and I'm like, and I'm staring at it and I'm going over and this is true story, going over and I'm like, I can't, this is not okay. Like, what does this look like? This is like other people go through like, does this person think that this is okay behavior? I need to prove a point. And I'm picking up this like cardboard boxes and just trash and lifting it. And Armand behind me is like, what are you doing? Because he thinks I'm going into the trash can to throw it away. And I'm actually grabbing it to put in front of their door to make a point. And like, I'm like, maybe I should tape it with like duct tape to their door. And he's like, are you out of your mind? And I was like, this is for the justice of the building. And he's like, oh my, he's like, you're crazy. But it's those moments where it's like, he's like, no one will know. I'm like, no one, and there are these moments where I'm like, I need to do this for the building's sake. So anyway, that's my real life story. I did not do it because I have an amazing husband who keeps me in line. But had it not been him, it might have been like taped onto his door. It's a possibility. Okay, number 6. Trail-yup. Numbers. Okay, this is public morality. It's really about not doing things to let people down. It's doing things to not want to hurt them. Okay. It is about like publicly not. It's actually, this one more relates to monks. Yes.
Probably like civics. Like it's my civic duty to.
It's more like around. Yes, a little bit. To me, it's tinged with like civic duty / guilt. Is how it comes off to me. But okay, civic. It's This sense of I don't want to disrupt or upset other people publicly and do something that will upset them. You know, like I'm not,
I'm not going to troll that person.
Not disturbing others.
yeah, it's like to not be disruptive, right? And to know that you're withholding so that you're not creating disruption for that sake, even though you want to.
So you're not gonna take.
So I'm not going to take the cardboard box to my neighbor's.
Upset.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Number 7 is Sharab. Sharab is wisdom. It's really understanding selflessness, right? Selflessness. Okay. Let's see where we're at. Hold on a minute. We're almost at time. I'll do 3 more, and then what we're going to do is let's see how far we get. I'm going to extend class to about 15 minutes after and see how far we can get, okay? And whatever we can't get, we'll just finish up next class. 3 qualities that make the actual action of giving exceptional. The first one is the attitude of respect. Is to give out of respect. So it's not just the physical act of giving, but to have in your heart the sense of respect while you give, right? So, it's like money is a good one. Like when you give money, if you're giving away money, you do it with a sense of respect instead of just tossing it, right? The second one is to give in times of need. Ideally, they say that when you give, it's at the peak of their need. That is when you're giving.
The peak of your need? Or
Their need. Yeah. Number 3 is to provide no harm. So you're giving something that won't hurt them. So don't give an alcoholic alcohol, right? Or, you shouldn't be giving, depending, or, you don't give anything that's going to hurt the person. So understanding that. Or giving food that's not healthy, right? That's that's something that Armando and I have this conversation a lot because he's a food photographer. And there are times where he'll be shooting for days and there's so much food left over. And there's jars of lard and oil and just crap. And, it's always who do we give? No one should be eating this stuff, And so it becomes this conversation all the time that we talk about, do we give this? Do we not? That sort of thing. Sugar. Compost. Yeah, now we're composting everything. Okay, number 4 qualities of the person you give to. 1 is, there's 4 qualities of the person you give to. The first one is Depa. Can you say Depa? So Depa is a type of being. So they're saying that it's humans. It's better to actually give to a human than an animal. Why?
They can reach enlightenment.
Yeah. They have the capacity to reach enlightenment. The humans have...
Same word as faith.
Oh, yeah. I found out today that I've been doing a typo with the word arhat. I've been writing arhant. That's not right.
I do know one thing about Tibetan, though.
Tell me.
Like a lot of old languages, English has a ridiculous amount of words.
Yeah.
We've absorbed so many different cultures. So a lot of times there is no direct translation for a lot of things. So it's based on the context.
Yeah. It's
So
like Chinese.
the same
too.
word is going to get used 5 different times and
Yeah.
mean 5 really different things based
Yeah.
on the words that are around it.
I'll check and see if that's right.
Animal has the potential to get enlightened too, so I don't understand.
A human has more of a potential to get enlightened. They have the cognitive ability. Right? There's just a different kind of order. So if you're going to give, they're saying give to humans that have a higher potential.
But should you give to someone or something that's needed the most?
Like an animal versus a human.
Yeah, the animal needs help more.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't saying that you shouldn't like give to animals or have a pet or, save and rescue animals. It's just saying that in this system, they're just saying simply that humans are a higher karmic object in comparison to animals. Just because they have more
You
potential.
can give to, I don't know if you guys know Beth Stern. But you can give to Beth Stern, and she rescues cats.
Mm-hmm.
So she's Howard Stern's wife. And if you don't follow her on Instagram, you should, because it's me.
They have so many cats. They have like 30
she's
cats.
so much closer to enlightenment, and she's helping so many more beings below her.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I like cats.
Oh, nice. I reached out to her on Instagram and she had the shelter calling me.
Yeah. They have so many cats.
Yeah.
Where is he?
It's crazy.
Oh, really?
Wow.
There's an interview that he talks about his wife
Oh.
with David Letterman on Netflix. Okay. I have to say these things because Chloe asks more follow-up questions, and she'll be like, "Which one?" Okay, so I'm just trying to preempt it.
So is it better to give to her than to somebody who is just a regular Joe and doesn't do good works? I mean, so is it better to give a gift to the Dalai Lama than anyone in this room? Because the Dalai Lama is
higher up there.
More in life.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
What's the short answer?
Yeah, that's a short answer. The second one is duknel, is suffering. So it's giving to someone who is suffering. It's much more than giving to somebody who is not. Right? So that could also help contribute to the answer. Right? Like someone who is really in need versus someone who's really not in need. Has a higher karma. See, now you're going to be all strategic about who you give. Be like, how bad do you need it? Who are you in the pecking order? Are you human? Check. Do you need it? How bad? A 5? Number 3 is penpa. Penpa is assistance. It refers to people who have given you great assistance. Who have we talked about that has given you great assistance?
Parents.
Yeah, it's specifically speaking and addressing to parents. Giving to your parents. And why is it so important why are they ones that have given you great assistance? What do they assist you with?
Being born as a human.
Life. They're giving you life to be born as a human, which allows you to have the potential to get enlightened. Yeah. So whether they're good parents or not is actually not the point. It's actually the fact that they have given you life. Yeah.
Also teachers.
Teachers as well. Sure. Yeah. Of course. But your parents are your first teachers too. If you think about it. Parents are hard. And I also think that there is something interesting when you think about Western culture too, because there's so much of in Asia, Asians don't, you're not, I don't even know if you even have the like understanding that you could speak poorly of your parents that way. It's like your parents are up there, you know, like a lot of cultures have that, right? And in the US, there's so much like shit talking about your parents. It's great, you know, and you would never have that. I mean, even in my family, to speak at a certain tone, there's like I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, what? I was just asking I'm even asking a question. It took my family many, many years, decades, to be okay with the fact that G just asks questions a lot, because that was considered to be disrespectful even to ask. Like, I asked you to do this. I'm like, but do I have to do it now, or can I do it? Like, why do I have to do it now? And that in that tone already was, you're being disrespectful. And I'm like, but that's not disrespect. This is a free country. Like, it would be like that as a child. It's a free country. What do you mean disrespect? I'm supposed to ask questions. That's what I learned in school, you know? And so I think that there is something interesting about just reminding ourselves culturally about just honoring our parents, even if we may think that they may not be the greatest and best in the world. That's okay. But just that baseline, like leveling up that baseline, I think is important to bring back in. Number 4, can we say Yonten? Yonten is good qualities. And it means to giving to those with high spiritual qualities. So that's right up there. Right, so the Dalai Lama, holy beings that you know, that's what they're speaking to. Okay. There is a higher karmic power in giving to teachers. Let's do, sorry, give me 1 sec. Okay, let's do these last bit. I'm going to cruise through it, and I think we'll be good. Can we say J-La? Sakpo. So J is committed, La is and Sakpo is collected. It's a distinction in the Abhidharma system, where we're going to talk about committed and collected karmas. So there's 6 things that cause karma to be committed and collected. So what it means is that there are 6 things that make your karma more committed and stored. It like locks it in more. I think about that. It reminds me of like
So more likely to ripen.
More likely to ripen and to be locked in. I don't know. I think about color when I think about that. Yeah. Locked in. That's how they talk about it.
So harder to purify?
It could be harder to purify. Yeah. 1, can you say Sam Shindu? That's intentional. It means that the deed is done intentionally. It means that the deed is done intentionally, meaning that you knowingly know the consequence, and the intention of when you do it plants that seed to be more firm, which we've talked about in class, right? There's a difference of accidentally doing something. There's a difference of accidentally smacking yourself and realizing, oh, that itch was actually a bug that was eating me, right? Versus looking at it and being like, I'm going to kill that, right? There's a difference of that. Right? So intention, understanding the intention of what you do and the charge behind it. Second one, can we say Leki? Yenla? Sopa. So that is complete path of karma, which we've talked about. It means that there is, it's done with all the parts complete. There were 4 different paths that we had that were complete. It was identifying an object. There was the thinking involved, like the premeditation, and then it was undertaking the task, and there was completing it. So the example they had was around murder. Like, if you're going to go kill someone, you're going to identify who you want to kill. You're going to think and premeditate how you're going to kill them. Then you're going to actually go out and undertake the action of killing them. And if they actually die, you've completed that action. Morbid. Game of Thrones. Are you guys watching? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just asking. Want to get a pulse in the class. Number 3. Can you say mi gyupa? No regret means you are glad you did it. You have no regret. You're doing things with no regret. Now, the opposite of that's kind of the negative way. The opposite is rejoicing. It doesn't have to be like, yeah, I killed them. It could be like, yeah, I helped them. So it's this idea of having a sense of regret or rejoice. Number 4, can you say Nyempo Mepa? That's to have no antidote or no counteraction. It means that you're doing something with no counteraction, meaning there's no antidote to it. You're not cleaning it up. You didn't do anything to make up for it, which is basically kind of what they're doing is the teaching is starting to plant the early seeds to let you know that there's a way to clean up your karma. So you went and you did something that wasn't so great and you just let it be and you didn't try to find a way to counteract it.
Within how long? Is there a period that you did it?
We'll talk about it in the purification bonus class.
I just realized that you can give the best part of the cake and then sit there wanting it anyway.
It's
that
true.
That would be like a counteraction.
Totally.
Or to take it back.
It's so true. Or to take it back. Or to take it back. No, that's so mean.
Yeah, that would be the counteraction. That's the converse
Yeah.
you're looking at. Like
It's true, but that is actually interesting because you can give and still want it. Like your mind still is going after
Yeah,
that.
you regret, like,
Sure,
oh,
of course.
I wanted
Yeah, for sure. We do that all the time in other different ways. We're like, oh man, I should have just taken those tickets. I really wish I did that. Or, oh, I gave away that dress. Oh, she looks good in it. When I give away that dress, I could have worn that, Yes.
It's like a reversing of White Elephant at Christmas.
Uh-huh.
Rather than like
Oh my-
stealing.
yes.
I want that from you.
You
It's
know
like,
what?
I'm going to give this to you.
I have a cousin-in-law and their family could no longer do white elephant because the uncles and aunts, the older generation, got so possessive and the grandmas got upset and they'd get angry about someone else taking the piggy bank and it was a fight and she's like, no more. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But it makes sense because you have that, they just didn't have that spirit. It was a very foreign concept, I think, for them. Yeah, it's a good practice. Number 5, Cordon Chepa. So that's satisfaction you did it. It means that, actually, technically, they say that it's the necessary attendance is like the technical term, which is interesting that they say it that way. Ultimately, they're saying that it's that there is a satisfaction, like this feeling that when you've done the deed, you take joy in it. But I don't know why it has necessary attendance in it. And it is similar to the other one.
Necessary
Attendance.
attendance.
Mm-hmm.
This core is real.
Yeah,
Shape out its benefit.
I don't know. That's all I know. Yeah. I know, I thought that was weird too. Mm-hmm.
I think they might also be the same pronunciation, but different words.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
different words.
Or it could be a pronunciation and spelled wrong. That's also possible because it's all.
Yeah.
Number 6, Namin Yongge. And that's definite karmic result. It basically, and this is a strange one for me too, because it's basically saying that it's a result of all the previous 5 that have come together, and that the karmic seed will definitely be planted if you have if you are having any it's a build. It's basically saying like the result of all the previous 5 would ultimately land on the definite karmic result to ripen. Feels a little strange in the bucket. Okay. We actually finished class. I know we're late. Thank you so much for reading. We're going to wrap up. One thing I will say very quickly that I do want to note is, before all of you go on retreat, and also just in general, and I've said this before in the past, and I'm going to just reiterate it. I know that sometimes when we're in class, we're talking about these different landmarks, however we want to talk about it, whether it's a direct perception of emptiness, whether it's not entertaining or doing your bad virtues, non-virtues, or reaching nirvana or enlightenment. We have these kind of goals that we've created. The thing about spiritual practice that I do want to really, 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 really express the importance of is it's not a final destination. It's not a final goal. Well, let's say it is a destination, but it's not a goal. That if you go and you practice in the sense of making it a goal to reach enlightenment, you've missed the point. Because when we talk about practice every time, it's always couched in it as the path to enlightenment. It's the path that you're on. And that is so important. And I think that so many of us get into this habit because that's just the way we've been wired in a way to have these certain goals. Like, I need to meditate X amount of days, or X amount of time, or I need to do this. And that's not what this is. Okay. It's not. And it will just, I think, in my opinion, it will not help you and it will not serve you in the long run. It is a path. It is a journey. It does take time. It does take patience. But if you go after it, and that's why I get always nervous about these things of like, these are the ways to give. These are the people to give. These are just general things to consider that may be new for you and maybe they're not. And maybe they're things you already know. Probably you know most of it to some degree, even though you haven't seen a list of it in Tibetan with it and have it be categorized. You instinctively kind of know, right? So keep that in mind and just know that it's, in one way, it's simply just a reminder. Like, when you give, consider the way in which you give. And if you are giving out of a place that may not be from the most place of your truth or your wisdom, then these are different ways in which it's been considered. And they're very dry ways of how it can be, but start to think about it and see if it colors the way in which you consider what practice can be for you. Okay. That also being said, I will say, take what works for you and what doesn't leave behind. And I say that in terms of what you learn in the class. I also say that in terms of any type of advice that I've ever given you, because I do not know each and all of you to the same degree that your friends know you, your family knows you. Like, these are practices and philosophies that are very broad. And so what speaks to you, you take and use that. And if it's 50%, if it's 10%, fine, take that, and everything else, simply leave it behind. And there's nothing wrong with that. And do not feel pressure to try to integrate all these different things. That's insane to me. That's too much, and you will fail. Okay? All right. Love you all. Here you go.
Sashi Puki Jushin Meto Tram Rira Vingshin Yende Yampadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uargi Drokun Namda Shinma Druparsho Idam Guru Ratnamanda Kamdir Tayani Gewa Di Gewokun Sunam Yeshe Soksokshi Sunam Yeshe Lejuwe Dampa Kuni Toparsho.
Just a quick closing meditation. Take a moment and rejoice for coming to class tonight. Commend yourself for attending, for sitting through, for participating and being open and listening. Acknowledge your time, which is all you have, and acknowledge your effort, and acknowledge whatever intention it was that drove you to class tonight. Take the goodness that you felt tonight, whether it was a little bit or a lot, the moments that made it feel special or added some sort of value. Take that feeling and can you dedicate it? Can you dedicate it to one person out there that you love? Someone who needs help. Someone who's having a hard time. Send all the good juju to them. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, June.
Thank you, June.
Thanks for hanging in there.